On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, SGA wins Player of the Week. Just how good can he be this season and moving forward for the Oklahoma City Thunder? Plus, an in-season edition of Stock Watch. Whose stock are we buying? Whose stock are we selling? Who's trending up? Who's trending down? Plus, we're going to recap OKC Blue Media Day and practice yesterday for the Thunder. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, lothunderpod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by LinkedIn, we're going to continue to dive into the Thunder getting a ton of recognition this week over how they're playing on a 4-game winning streak. Now SGA is the Western Conference Player of the Week, plus our first in-season edition for this year of the Stock Watch Report and recapping OKC Blue Media Day. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is where the game starts. They have you covered this year with more props, lines, and info. Also, thank you so much for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. And let's start with SGA. He goes for Player of the Week in the Western Conference. The Thunder went 3-0 last week, which is where he was crowned Player of the Week. In that week, he averaged 31.7 points per game, 7.7 assists per game, 5.3 rebounds per game. Other nominees were Desmond Bane, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, Keldon Johnson, also another nominee. I think that there's a real possibility that the Saturday game against Dallas kind of gave SGA the edge of winning that game and getting Player of the Week. Now remember, this week the Thunder played Orlando. They played Denver and Milwaukee this week. SGA was phenomenal against Orlando and was able to get the Thunder another comeback win, so he's off to a good start there as hopefully being a repeat winner. We'll see what he does on Thursday against Denver. And then, of course, Milwaukee will be a very tough test, very good defense for the Bucks, who are still unbeaten right now in the NBA, the last unbeaten team. SGA won Player of the Week last year as well in December. Last December, he won Player of the Week in the Western Conference. But this is still a great honor, and I think that with SGA, you are seeing him on that path and on that trajectory of being an all-NBA player eventually in his career. And I think that this year, he's an all-star. I think that this is the year that's going to be his all-star season. His bag is deeper this year. He's a better playmaker this year. He's better defensively this year. I would be stunned if SGA was not an all-star. Forget about what the team record is, which, by the way, they're over 500 right now, so that's trending upward as well. Forget about team record. Forget about anything that has been used as a crutch to kind of keep SGA out of the All-Star game to this point. There's no more denying SGA's All-Star appearance. I mean, he's getting MVP chance at the free throw line in the game on Tuesday against Orlando. He's here. He's arrived. He's taken that leap from All-Star caliber to All-Star, and he's looking like a superstar in this season. Again, small sample size. It's 7 games. They've got to keep on going. They've got to keep this pace up. But if you're only evaluating these 7 games, he looks like a superstar in this league. And he's gotten better even at the things that he was already great at. We talked all last year about how great he was at the rim and how last year he graded out as one of the best rim scorers in this league and led the league in driving and was awesome around the rim. Yeah, this year so far, SGA is shooting 72% at the rim. That's the 88th percentile, and it's a career high by 10 percentage points. SGA's been great at the rim, and he's getting better. He's getting better. Last year, he finished up, of course, with a 62% at the rim in terms of how many makes he had at the rim, and was in the 70th percentile. So he's getting better at that. He's shooting 46% in the mid-range, and the way that he plays offensively is just a joy to watch. He's keeping defenders on their heels because how do you guard him? Okay, you know you're not supposed to let him get downhill and get to the rim, so you kind of back off of him. Well, if you give him too much space, well, then he's going to pop that mid-range shot, which he's so comfortable getting up, and he's efficient at scoring in the mid-range. Okay, let's kind of play up on him, take away the mid-range. Well, now he uses that burst and length to get by you and uses his body to shield you from the rim and is able to score at the cup as well. So there's just not a good way to defend SGA. And that's what makes him so talented. And as a playmaker, I think that he's shown a lot of strides. Number one, just as a passer, he's gotten better. As a decision maker, he's gotten better. He's making the right play every time down the floor. He's playing nearly perfect games in this last 4-game stretch and in this season as a whole for him, which he's played 6 games out of the 7 for OKC. And he's played a perfect season to this point. And I think that these numbers get even more eye-popping as you get shooting improvement from the players on this roster. And I think it's also, as I mentioned before, a testament to him that he trusts those guys still. You might miss you might go like Poku did on Tuesday. On Tuesday, Poku goes 1 for 4 throughout the course of the game, but SGA trusts him to kick out to him for that 5th 3-pointer, which goes down and is the dagger and wins you the game against Orlando. Having that trust instead of saying, you know what, he's 1 for 4, I've got to do this all by myself, is building and instilling good habits in your star player who will eventually have better and better and better talent, or these guys around him improve and improve and improve, right? So it's great to see those good habits forming right now. And the jaw-dropping thing has been his defense. The last 4 games, 5 games, he's had 3+ steals in every single game. Like, he is able to deny entry passes in the post, play the passing lanes very well, and that comes with, whenever you do that, that creates fast break opportunities and fast break points for a young Thunder team that might not be conducive to scoring in the half-court setting right now besides SGA, right? So it's been awesome to watch him play and watch him perform in this season. I think that if he's not an all-star, it's a crying shame. Like, he is an all-star player, has been for a couple of years. This is just getting solidified at this point, and you're seeing other people take notice. You're seeing John Hollinger take notice. You're seeing the No Dunks podcast has a whole segment on how he's going to be an all-star this year. Like, you are seeing the national media really take hold of SGA in the Thunder in more than just a passing glance or a jab joke here and there. They're legitimately looking at how good SGA's been. It's not just those of us in OKC who are so close to the team. Like, everyone sees it. Everyone sees how good he is. I think that you should really watch tonight's game against Denver, Thursday's game against Denver, and just kind of see how poised he is and how he never really gets sped up at all. Playing that under control really helps out everyone around him. Whenever the best player in your team or your leader of your team is not pressing or is not freaking out or frantic, it allows everyone else to take a step back, take a deep breath, and get back into the rhythm of the game and get back into throwing that counter punch. That's how they mount these comebacks. I think that it's Mark staying steady, it's Shai staying steady, it's these guys staying calm when they get down 15, get down 16, that they just chip away, and eventually it gets them over the top and gets them over the hump in these games. So SGA very much so deserves Player of the Week. It was an awesome week for him. And he'll deserve to be an all-star, and we'll see him in Salt Lake City. Voting usually starts around Christmas, so we'll see that coming down the pike pretty soon. And I do want to tell you right now about our good friends over at BetOnline, folks, because BetOnline is your number one source for all of sports betting. They have you covered this year with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Find the latest odds, news, and scores at betonline.net. BetOnline is fascinating to go to. I think that you should go there right now, betonline.net, and then go to their sportsbook. It's just interesting to see all the different things that you can do. So go to basketball, for example. Tonight's game, the Thunder are 6.5-point underdogs at home against the Denver Nuggets. But if you don't want to bet on individual single games, you can also bet on stuff like the NBA draft already, like who was the first overall pick. Victor Wembanyama is the clear favorite, minus 1,000. Anyone other than Scoot Henderson or Victor Wembanyama is plus 825. Scoot Henderson is plus 1,000. That's interesting that Scoot Henderson would actually have the lowest odds, more so than taking the field between those two. So you can bet on stuff like that right now to this day. You can also bet on trade props, like where will Russell Westbrook be traded if he is traded. The Pacers right now are in the lead at plus 150. It's very fun to go to and just check out what Vegas thinks of the NBA. And of course, if you want to get involved in betting yourself, go to betonline.net. We are back on the Locked On Royals podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. For your next listen, go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The Locked On Sports Today podcast is hosted by Peter Bukowski. It is taking you in depth, behind the scenes, beyond the scoreboard of each of the biggest news stories around every single sport. So they have you covered there at Locked On Sports Today. Check it out today, under 30 minutes or less, and every single day you get the biggest scoop of MLB, NBA, football, everything, all the action that you need. Check it out today, Locked On Sports Today. Now let's do an edition of Stock Watch in season for the Oklahoma City Thunder and the NBA as a whole. Let's start with the Thunder Stock Watch. I am buying in to SGA's defense. And the reason is he has the ability, he has the skill, he has the length to be a good defender. The only thing he needs to do to be a good defender is give effort. And so if he's truly committed to giving effort, as he has been so far in his first 6 games of his season, if he truly commits to that effort, then there is no doubt in my mind he can be this good of a defender throughout the entire season because of everything we just mentioned. His wingspan is awesome. His frame is awesome. His quickness is awesome. Has a lateral quickness and everything else that goes along with defending. Like, he is a good enough physical defender that if he wants to and puts his mind to it, he can be a good defender. And so far this year, he's put his mind to it and it's shown up. I mean, he's locking down Franz Wagner at the end of that game on Tuesday in a big way. Trey Mann's defense. I'm going to buy into his defense in the sense of kind of the same nature of effort. I don't think that Trey Mann can ever be classified as a plus defender, like a really good defender, but I think that his quickness and ability to stay in front of offensive players and be in the right place at the right time is there. Like, he has a natural knack of that. You've seen him draw 2 charges, I think 3 this year. You think he drew 2 in one game and also got a 3rd charge. Trey Mann did. Like, you see him rotate well and play off-ball defense very well. I think that can truly translate moving forward. And then Pokusevski. I am buying this role of Pokusevski. I think that with Pokusevski's new role, you're seeing him not be some superstar, not be some unicorn. You're seeing him just be an NBA player that can cut off ball, that can spot up and shoot the 3 whenever he gets the ball dished out to him. And his defense, whenever he elects to be physical, is pretty good. The toughest part, I think, will be is getting him to that physical point every single game and getting him into that physical mindset every single game. I'm not sure if the Thunder can get that out of him every game, which is why you're seeing some games he plays 12 minutes and some games he plays 20-plus minutes. But if they can do that, that'll be huge for them. Another Thunder thing I'm buying is simply Mark Daigneault, which we're going to talk about later on in today's show as well. But I love the fact that the Thunder have guys like SGA and Trey Mann who are comfortable being the screener. Like, a lot of guards, I think, might view that as awkward or might view that as something that they wouldn't want to do, but it's such a lethal weapon to have SGA screen for Trey Mann and vice versa. I love the different lineup combinations. I love the fact that, he's instilling those habits. I find it interesting that, we look at the lineups with Mark and a lot of times people complain about it or just question it, right? Question, why is he doing this? And this is so ridiculous and this is so unorthodox. But those same people will be the same ones saying, oh my goodness, like that you can't tank or you can't lose games, or in the NBA, losing games is so bad because it creates bad habits. The Thunder are actively trying to get good habits. Mark's the one that challenges SGA and Trey Mann to get better defensively, and they have. Mark's the one that is saying, look, if you're not playing well, we're going to yank you off the floor and get someone in there who is, because we are trying to get those habits of everybody stays ready, everybody stays at their best to go out there and play each and every night. You never know when your number is going to get called, because whenever you are a contending team and a competing team, you never know what is going to work or isn't going to work on any given night, and also what adjustments the other team makes. Like, you could go into a playoff series and think that things are going to go one way, and then they don't, and you need your guys to stay ready to where you can also counteract that and mix and match along with the other coach. Like, all these things are winning habits, just like we mentioned with SGA, staying trusting of his teammates and not falling into hero ball whenever things aren't going the Thunder's way. Keep making the right play, and eventually the shots will fall, and eventually you'll end up on the right side of the scoreboard. The lineup thing is a part of those habits as well. And I think that it's just awesome to see that the Thunder, as young as they are, have bottom 10 turnovers, which is a good thing, right? Like, they're not turning the ball over that much as a young team, and a top 10 defense. Those are two things that young teams typically struggle with, and Mark is already getting them to that point as a young team and instilling that in them. That's awesome. Now, some around the NBA things, some big picture things. Luka Doncic and his MVP case, I'm buying it. I think that Luka is the MVP right now. I think it's either him or Giannis, and I would side with Luka right now. For the MVP, if I had to vote on it, if I had a vote and I voted on it today, I'd vote for Luka. He's been awesome. I am selling the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Brooklyn Nets are just so far gone that it'll be tough to rebound from this. And they have the drama with Kyrie and KD, and now they're going to fire Steve Nash, and they might hire Ime Udoka. Like, it's all just too much to handle. The Ben Simmons stuff is already wild as well. You know, is he hurt? Is he not hurt? Why did he airball layup? Like, it just feels too much to handle in season. It feels like it needs another offseason to once again try to regroup and kind of figure this thing out. It seems like the season will move too fast for them to catch up and to really kind of bounce back from where they're at this point. The Utah Jazz, I'm actually going to sell the Utah Jazz. I think that they're a nice story. I think that they're a fun team to watch, but I don't view them as some like playoff contender. I think that they're just a fun team to watch. They remind me a lot of the way that the Thunder started that Al Horford year, whenever it was the year after the bubble, so it was 2020, 2021. They were a fun squad, and they got off to a better record-wise start than people thought. And it was Lou Dort hitting the buzzer beater and Al Horford dogpiling on him. Like, all those things were fun. But, you know, things happen throughout the season to where everyone kind of regresses back to the mean or kind of goes back to what was expected of them before. I think that that's kind of the case for the Utah Jazz. But we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I think that the Jazz, that there's interesting stats, and you should go listen to Locked On Jazz, because I think that David Locke is doing a great job of selling me off of this point. I think that David Locke's stats that he pulls out in every podcast make me kind of perk my ears up, and I like a lot of their players. I love Colin Sexton. I like Lauri Markkanen. Like, I like a lot of their players. I just don't know if the winning part of it will continue. I think that the fun part of it will, but maybe not the winning part will continue as you start playing contenders and contenders start to play with more intensity. I think that will be a big part of it as well. Coming up, let's recap OKC Blue Media Day and recap Thunder practice from yesterday on the Locked On Thunder podcast. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're talking OKC Blue Media Day and Thunder practice to end the show. Also, when the show's over, go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast for the biggest stories around sports. So, yesterday was OKC Blue Media Day. We heard from Cameron Woods, Abdul Gaddy, Scotty Hopson, DJ Wilson. We heard from a lot of the guys on the team, and it was a lot of fun. For one thing, if you're curious, the outside of the Blue facility, which is the original Thunder practice facility, it still smells like dog food. It still does. It is, as Paris Lawson described it whenever we walked outside yesterday, the dog food was ripe yesterday. It was strong yesterday. But it was just cool to be inside the original facility, the old skating rink. I mean, it was awesome to see that in person. But as far as the actual media day, dude, Cameron Woods just seems like a really cool guy. Like, he just has that cool aura about him of, like, he's somebody that kind of has that it factor that you kind of just gravitate towards. And I think that whenever I asked him to describe his coaching style, he paused and said, my coaching style is relaxed, and said that, Brad Stevens, who he played for at Butler, never yelled. His quote was, Brad never yelled at us. Even though we were college kids and deserved to be yelled at, he never yelled at us. And so Cameron Woods tries to take that and run with it in this way. And I think that's just cool to see the family environment that gets described about the Thunder kind of put into practice, because the Thunder shuffle around and they made Grant Gibbs from the Blue head coach to the Thunder assistant coach this year and shuffled Cameron Woods down to the Blue head coaching job. That way that Grant Gibbs, he had the head coaching experience. He didn't have NBA assistant experience. So now Grant Gibbs gets that. Cam Woods had NBA assistant experience, didn't have head coaching experience. So now he gets that, like kind of putting your players, putting your personnel, your coaches in the right position to develop for their future of their career. It happens top down, executively. It happens on the court, off the court, everything with this Thunder organization and how connected they are. Like, I just don't think that other organizations are this connected with their G League team, where it's not just assigning players or just another opportunity to go develop somebody. It's like whenever you bring up Cam Woods to Mark has a huge smile on his face, and vice versa with Cam and Mark. Like, the relationships that they're forming at both levels is really cool to see them truly operate as a family, if you want to put it that way. But Cam Woods is a really cool guy, and I think that Jamias Ramsey put it best. Cam Woods is just smooth. He said Cam Woods is the smoothest coach I've ever played for, but he's also straightforward without being rude. Like, having that acknowledgement from a player is pretty eye-opening, right? Like, if you hear a player say, yeah, he's straightforward with us, he tells us like it is, and we know where we stand at, but it's not in a rude way. That's a very hard thing to balance, because when you're a coach or a boss, you're having to tell somebody what they did good, what they did bad, what they should improve on, how they should improve on it, and to get all that information out, especially in a sport, like a competitive environment, competitive ring, without coming off as rude or as aggressive or whatever, that's actually a really hard feat to accomplish. That was one quote that was a huge kind of eye-opener in terms of praise for Cam Woods. There was another one that was a huge eye-opener in terms of Mark. And so Abdul Gaddy talked about how he played for Mark with the Blue, and Gaddy said that Mark is the best coach he's ever had. He said that Mark's relationship-building skills are off the charts, and that Mark is the kind of coach that you want to run through a wall for. And you see that. Like, you see that with the Thunder. Like, the Thunder dive for 50-50 balls and getting SJ to play defense, even though he's the star of your organization, the face of your franchise, your leading scorer. Like, those guys typically get away with not playing defense, but to have that relationship to challenge him to play defense and then have him actually do it, that is huge. Like, that is something that you can take, where Mark is truly coming off this way with the players. Also, Scottie Hopson, who you might remember, he's been with the Blue for like 3 years now or 4 years now, and also got some time last year with the Thunder to score his first NBA bucket. Scottie Hopson finished his degree, so credit to him, at the University of Tennessee. I won't tell you how old I was watching Scottie Hopson play at the University of Tennessee, but I was in elementary school, and it was awesome in him, and they had another guy, Wayne Chisholm, that was really fun to watch at Tennessee. That was a fun Tennessee squad. So congratulations to him for getting his degree. And then I asked DJ Wilson about the similarities between Toronto and OKC's player development, because those are two teams that truly get, a ton of recognition. Them, Memphis, of being Miami, of being, the best of the best in terms of player development. And DJ Wilson said that they have a lot of similarities between how those two organizations operate, and said that they both do things the right way. And the thing that stuck out was how often that they're on the court, and how even the best of the best players, like your number one guy, SGA, for example, they're oftentimes the first one that are on the court, and the first ones that are on there, last ones to be off of there. And so that's just interesting to hear from a player's perspective, kind of him, what's the word, kind of contextualizing or laying out that talking point, like it's describing in actuality how the Thunder are good at player development, and Toronto is as well, and what's kind of different about them. But he also said that, being in Milwaukee was great too. So that was kind of it from Thunder, from Blue Media Day. From Thunder practice, Chet was out there shooting some shots with his walking boot. That was cool to see. And then I asked Mark about the fact that the third quarter has been awesome for the Thunder. Of course, he mentioned halftime adjustments, but said that they have to keep that up and kind of keep going with that throughout the rest of the season. So I do want to thank you all for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.